Streets and Scholars, Alex Alonso and Chris Todd here to bring you guys another banger. And FG's not in this week, but we got a great conversation about the OJ Simpson homicide. I'm sitting here with Chris Todd, who's a producer, I guess investigative journalist, producer, writer, author, and you spent at least the last 7 years investigating the OJ Simpson, well, not the OJ Simpson homicide, but it's really the Nicole Brown, Simpson, and Goldman homicide from June 12th, 1994?
Correct.
Okay, so let's just give me a little background on what you were doing before you got involved in investigating this double homicide.
Sure. I want to give a shout out real quick to Santa Ana, Orange County, California. I have some fans that are going to be watching your channel and stuff. And
Santa Ana's in the house.
Santa Ana's in the house, Orange County, the Big S high school. These kids, I have these little fans that they're friends of the family, and they've been watching my videos, so I want to give a shout out to them. The skaters, the athletes down there in Santa Ana, Orange County.
OC.
And I'm honored to be here, Alex. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I love the channel, love the stuff you do. I think there has to be more independent journalists that are getting the truth out, real stories, hardcore stories from the street, as you say, about real life. And I think our mainstream media has failed us many different ways. Especially on the OJ Simpson murders, June 12th, 1994. But we'll get into that.
Definitely get into that.
Yeah, of course.
So give me a little bit about your background. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up? And how'd you get involved? I know you have a stint in Hollywood too. So briefly go through all that background for us.
I'll give you the brief version so it doesn't, not to ramble and take away from what we're doing today. I'm a New England kid. I'm from Connecticut, actually. I didn't work in the industry. I was kind of an athlete. I was a coach. I went to college to study psychology, sociology. I have a minor in sociology and a bachelor's in psychology. I was going to be a guidance counselor and a teacher. And just kind of as I got a little older, I got the creative bug and I wanted to go into the movies and the TV industry. And I did that, and I kind of moved to the West Coast. I did about 20 years in the film and TV business, commercials. I worked for many different studios, union and non, and I had a long journey with that. And basically about 8 to 10 years ago, I started to investigate murder cases where I was hired by this investor in Beverly Hills to look at the Natalie Wood murder case.
Was that 1981, Natalie Wood?
1981, yep.
She fell off a boat, quote
November
unquote?
29th, yep.
I remember the day it happened.
Do you really?
Yeah, it was all over the news.
Yeah.
Was Robert Wagner there?
Chris Walken, Robert Wagner, Dennis Davern were on the boat.
I was about 10 years old when that happened, but it was all over the news every day, and I never really found out what happened. But I'm sure you know the whole story on that.
I was on that for about 6 years, closely with the investigators, the captain himself, and there's a lot of backstory to that. There's a lot of deception there about what people knew at the time versus what they knew 30, 40 years later. But maybe someday we could talk about that. But the Natalie Wood case kind of opened me up to investigations of famous cases. Right after that, I got to meet Aaron Hernandez in a roundabout way, and his brother, who's kind of has some legal problems right now. But and I started to find a passion basically for famous cold cases and investigations. I looked at the Emmett Till project. That was fascinating to me. And there's some other ones that I have. And I was basically led into the OJ Simpson case by a producer who knew who I was from Natalie Wood and said, I have this OJ Simpson thing coming down the pike. Maybe you could help, because he had seen I had some press about Natalie, and I'd like to think he respected what I did on Natalie's journey for justice, as they used to call it. And I was brought in to talk to them, and I wasn't allowed to meet Charlie, who is basically OJ Simpson's accomplice.
So you're calling him a producer? That's the label you're giving him right now?
Yes.
Okay.
Not Charlie. Charlie was partnered with a producer to write a book, make an audio tape, and to write a screenplay.
is this producer gonna be unnamed?
He's named. I can name him. He's in the articles with the lawsuit. He is named. His first name is Eric.
Okay.
People can look him up. He's in the article that was written by the Miami New Times. So yeah, everything's public domain. There's nothing to hide on him. He's a good guy. I was partnered with him. I wanted to help them. And I believed in Charlie Ehrlich's story early on. It was hard to really fathom for a while. But through my own investigation, basically, and witnesses and testimonials and research, it went on for about 5 years. Also through my relationship with Charlie, that sometimes had to be a little covert. And that's why he likes to try to say that, oh, I don't know this guy. Besides being a 5-time convicted felon, okay, he is a liar. And most murderers are, and most mafia guys are liars, okay? They're not always lying, and the same thing in the gang world, and that's why I'm honored to be here. There's a lot of similarities with Omerta and a conspiracy of silence, a code of silence. These cases are hard to crack. When you find any mafia guys or any street gangs, they don't talk on each other. They don't rat, so it's hard to have witnesses to it. So, but in short, I was able to meet them, befriend them. I tried to help them. I felt the world needed to know and wanted to know the truth about June 12th. And I think it's a part of our culture. And for the media to block this story, I think is disgraceful. And I challenge any reporter, any media outlet, they all know who I am. I've gone to all of them 20 different times. They need to get their head straight, and they need to do their job. So hopefully someday, and maybe this will trigger something too. So appreciate it.
So regarding the double homicide back in '94, would you say that homicide and the trial that followed was probably one of the biggest cases of the 20th century?
Absolutely. The way I say it is, behind JFK, it's the biggest murder mystery of our time.
Yes. And were you paying attention to it back then when it happened?
I was 20 years old. I was a sophomore in college. I remember when it happened. I was at a party with my friends, a fraternity party, when the Bronco chase happened. Everyone was shocked. I still remember that moment. And yeah, and when the acquittal happened October 3rd, I watched that. I was actually in college at that time. I was a junior. And so I did live it like everybody else did, but I never in a million years would realize that I would be a key figure in this story. So to me, I'm a fate guy, destiny guy. I do believe, I used to watch it at my dad's girlfriend's house, the trial, the pre-trial actually. And now all these years later, I'm like, God, I guess this was meant to be. This was God showing me something of, you're going to be part of this someday. And now I am. So.
Yeah, I remember, let's see, I was a junior in college, 1994. Summer had just begun, and I believe it was the NBA playoffs.
Yes.
Let me see if I remember.
Rockets, Knicks, I think.
Was it Rocket Knicks?
Yep.
Okay.
I think so. I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure it was Akeem. That was that year. Jordan was gone. So it was the Knicks versus the Rockets, I believe.
Yeah, I know the Rockets end up winning in 95 and in 96. So who did you know? Maybe they won 94.
Might have been 94 or 95.
Yeah. So, no, you're right. It was the Rockets, Knicks, Game 5 of the finals. Mm-hmm. Game 5 of the finals.
Right.
And then the acquittal was the following year in 95. I believe it was the month of October.
October 3rd.
October 3rd. I was actually in Berkeley at I was up there to watch a USC football game, and I stayed in Berkeley for the week, and that's when the acquittal came down.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I remember that.
And the world kind of stopped.
Yeah.
If you remember on October 3rd, Times Square, everybody stopped in Times Square. They put it on the screen. All the TVs, they had took the footage of, in like Best Buy, all the TVs were switched on. So everybody in every mall, every shopping center, Times Square, nobody worked. They had this funny study about that. Everyone stopped working on that day too. And yeah, I mean, it was a gut punch to the nation. And I think it shocked people like, wow, what's wrong with our judicial system? Like there's something wrong. And people wanted to blame the jury and say this is a mostly non-white jury, which I guess in a way it was, but I know why OJ got off, and we'll get into that. You know, it's a 4-letter acronym. that will really be the real reason, not the jury, as to why OJ got off.
Well, I think there was a lot of racial tensions going on in Los Angeles in the early 90s. We had just came off of the largest urban uprising riot in American history. I believe there were 60 deaths, which is a record for any 3-day riot. And we had also the killing of Latasha Harlins by a Korean woman named Soon Ja-doo. I believe that was also 92 or 91. So all these things, huge events in the 90s happening in LA, 91, 92. Then we get the acquittal of the 4 LAPD officers, which would have been 93. And then now OJ gets arrested for this 94 double murder and gets acquitted in 95. And I think all these little events kind of contributed to him getting acquitted. What's your take on that?
Absolutely, and that's why I was going to say this acronym LAPD.
Okay.
This is because a lot of people ask me that. I get people that write me, call me, and they ask me a lot of times, why do you think OJ got off? They try to rail against the jury. Oh, there was a black jury, and they didn't want their hero to go to jail. And look, there can be a mix of things. There's not always one answer. You know what I mean? But the Mark Fuhrman tapes, okay?
I think that was the most devastating.
If you listen to that tape, I've heard most of it, okay? They only played the jury 2 segments of it, okay? Judge Ito only allowed 2 segments to be played, and first it was played without the jury there, and it was just it was a mess, okay? The things that Mark Fuhrman said right there was one of the main reasons OJ got off. Absolutely. Without a question. When he walked back in the room, they recalled him to testify. You can see the people in there looking at him like he's the devil. Okay. It changed the whole game. He talked about planting evidence, okay, on people of color. They settled a lawsuit, which I didn't know. I had to be pointed out to this by a famous, kind of semi-famous investigator, a mentor of mine. They settled a case that Fuhrman planted a knife on a man right before the OJ trial started. That he whispered in his ear, "Die, N-word, die." Okay? And they settled for like $100,000 to shut this guy up. And the defense team knew about this, and they didn't really bring it up. So the LAPD was already in damage control, but they didn't know that tape existed.
No, they didn't. And I guess F. Lee Bailey knew. I believe it was F. Lee Bailey that cross-examined Mark Fuhrman, asking him, have you ever said the N-word before? Correct. No. Are you sure you never used the N-word before? Never. Are you sure you never, ever actually uttered the N-word? I mean, I believe F. Lee Bailey asked him 5 or 6 different ways the same exact question.
Yes.
Do you use the word nigger in describing people?
Presently?
Yeah.
Or
No, sir.
Have you used that word in the past 10 years?
Not that I recall, no.
You mean if you called someone a nigger, you have forgotten it?
I'm not sure I can answer that question the way you phrased it, sir.
You have difficulty understanding the question. I'll rephrase
Yes.
it. I want you to assume that perhaps at some time, since 1985 or 6, you addressed a member of the African American race as a nigger. Is it possible that you have forgotten that act on your part?
No, it's not possible.
Are you therefore saying that you have not used that word in the past 10 years, Detective Fuhrman?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
And you say on your oath that you have not addressed any black person as a nigger or spoken about black people as niggers in the past 10 years, Detective Fuhrman?
That's what I'm saying, sir.
So that anyone who comes to this court and quotes you as using that word in dealing with African Americans would be a liar, would they not, Detective Fuhrman?
Yes, they would.
All of them, correct?
All of them.
Well, see, they knew there was the tape, and Fuhrman didn't know.
Yeah.
Laura Hart McKinney tried to sell it, but she whispered it into the LA, and she didn't realize everybody's going to talk. The defense team, Pat McKenna, Bill Pavlik, they sniffed it out. They didn't know her last name. It's a fascinating story. They didn't know her last name. They had to research to find who she was. Then the judge in North Carolina, I believe where she's from, they said no. Then they had to file and fly out there to go get this tape. And the judge finally, through an appeal, said, okay, here's the tape. If she never came forward with that tape, OJ might be in jail today.
Yeah, it might have been a different result. But, once Mark Fuhrman was exposed as a liar, and not just a liar, but a liar that had racial prejudices, for me as a a college student at the time, I was like, it's over. It's a wrap for me. The prosecution, there's no way the prosecution's going to win this case. They shouldn't win it, but but what's crazy is that Mark Fuhrman kind of, he rebirthed himself. He reinvented himself.
He gets hired at Fox News.
He gets hired at Fox News, but he also solves a crime. He writes a book and he solves this other homicide, I think up in the Pacific Northwest.
Well, he does Murder in Greenwich, which is my home state, Martha Moxley, the Skakel murder of Martha Moxley.
Oh, yeah, connected to the Kennedys.
Yeah, it's called Murder in Greenwich.
Yeah, and then he gets hired on Fox News like nothing ever happened. And
Like he's not a genocidal racist.
all right, so let's get into the OJ Simpson thing, man, because I think the case is fascinating. When I was in grad school, I read this great book by Professor Darnell Hunt. I was a student of his called OJ Simpson Facts and Fictions, and that's when I first started to really question the trial, question the homicide, question the investigation. But here we are. You've been doing this now for the last several years, and you probably have more insight into this case than anybody else. So let's start. Well, where do you want to start at?
I mean,
We can start from. Let's start from the actual crime.
yeah, like linear, kind of like
yeah.
crime happens, and then how does the investigation begin? Maybe where they go wrong right away too.
Because on the day of the crime, OJ Simpson has a plane ticket, already scheduled trip to go to Chicago for some event.
Yep, for Hertz.
And so this plane ticket must have been purchased before
Oh, yeah.
days. Do we know
yeah.
how long before the crimes happened?
I mean, it's probably a couple weeks. He was always traveling. He lived in New York. There was a Hertz tournament, like not a charity, but like a fundraiser thing for Hertz. Absolutely, and that's a good point you're bringing up. Is it's not premeditated.
Yeah.
it's not a premeditated murder.
Because my next question is if it was premeditated, no one's gonna plan to do a murder
On the way to the airport,
on the way to the airport to catch a flight.
we're talking within minutes.
Yes.
I'm talking like limos en route. Like this guy Donald Freed does a book, Killing Time, and he does all the clocks. He uses the clocks as the timeline. And so the limo driver's driving to OJ's. OJ's chipping golf balls in his. What's Ron Goldman doing? He's punching out at Mezzaluna. What's Nicole doing? She came back from ice cream and dinner at Mezzaluna. And he's matching all these people. And it's fascinating because you're like, all their lives are going to change. They're all going to intersect with each other. And this is where we'll lead to Charlie and Joey Ippolito and how they set this extortion on Sunday night at about 10 p.m., minutes before that limo is going to arrive at OJ's house.
Okay, so OJ is waiting for his limousine.
Yes.
Probably, I don't know, an hour before the homicide?
We're talking minutes.
Like 30 minutes before?
30 minutes.
Okay. So
His flight's at like 11:45. He's outside chipping golf balls at about 10 p.m., 10:05. He makes the last phone call to Paula Barbieri at 10:03 p.m. They don't know if he says it in the car, he's in the road, he got a portable phone in his Bronco. I think he's just in the Bronco while it's parked at his house, and he's calling her. He's outside, okay? And then Charlie Ehrlich shows up at Rockingham very quickly right after this, after the McDonald's trip with Cato. They come back. Cato goes into his room at 9:45. OJ's packing his bags. His bags are outside. That's why the limo driver says, I saw bags outside. He's ready to leave. He is not planning to murder someone.
Okay, so explain who Charlie Ehrlich is for those who don't know and those that are hearing his name for the first time.
Charlie Ehrlich is OJ's accomplice. Okay. He was also OJ's accomplice in the Vegas robbery in 2007. Now, what a coincidence there. And OJ wrote in his book, If I Did It, chapter 6, this guy Charlie showed up, a guy I had recently become friends with, and he wasn't smiling. And I said, what's wrong? And I'm fluctuating between the confession, screenplay, tape, their manuscript book, the info that Charlie gives, and also the info that OJ gives. So I fluctuate between, and people try to hold me to this, but I like to tell it all together. It's just easier. And this guy Charlie shows up. Well, who's Charlie? Well, how does OJ know a cocaine smuggler from the mafia, right? Why does he know a guy named Joey Ippolito from the DeCavalcante crime family, the New Jersey mob? Why does he know this guy too? Why are all these phone calls going to Rockingham that's in a published report in 1994? Why is Joey Ippolito continually calling Rockingham over and over again? Okay. It was a extortion. It was a drug debt that Charlie and Joey tried to tie Faye Resnick into, Nicole Brown Simpson, Keith Z, and OJ himself. And OJ flips this onto them. It's Nicole's fault. It's Faye's fault. It's this guy, Keith Z. And I can't go into too much detail about how Ehrlich sets it up. We could talk for hours. It's like there's so much detail to what they're doing that I know about too. And OJ freaks out. He's just like, what? Why are you telling me? Why are you asking me for a bunch of money? I hooked Joey up. That's what it says in the confession, okay? He's telling him like, why are you squeezing me? And that's the name of the script. It's called Squeeze. See, in the article, they call it Juiced. It's actually called Squeeze.
Okay, so you have multiple sources here. You're talking about a script that was written or co-written by
Charlie and Ehrlich.
Charlie Ehrlich and Eric. And then you're also referring to the book that OJ wrote,
If I Did It,
which eventually got taken off the
which
shelf.
he wrote with Charlie, but he never says Charlie's last name. That's why he says Charlie brought the knife. Charlie followed this guy in. And everyone's like, who's Charlie? Now remember, that interview was shelved for 12 years. No one saw it. Rupert Murdoch fired Judith Regan. He shelved the book. It was in a vault. There was one single copy. They shredded thousands of copies because the families and everyone went crazy. Like, what are you doing? OJ's confessing. He's telling the story. Well, who's Charlie? Oh, it's his alter ego. No, it's a real guy. He's messing with you. Charlie showed up. I believe Charlie took the knife. What? Like, and so to me, it was fascinating when Eric told me initially about the project too. He goes, read chapter 6. Watch the Judith Regan interview. Let OJ tell you the story first. And that's how I was like, whoa, wait a minute. What's going on? They only released the Judith Regan interview in 2018 when OJ's going to get out of jail from Vegas. No one saw that.
And what year is the Judith Regan interview?
2006.
And what is it? The interview actually reveal?
Based on the book. Oh, If I Did It. And for about 15 minutes, he talks about Charlie. Charlie's in a panic. Charlie's saying, we got to get out of here. And then he flips it around like, I tell Charlie, we got to get out of here. It's like, who's panicking? OJ or Charlie or both? He's fluctuating it like, I pushed Charlie out of the way. I grabbed the knife. I do remember that portion, taking the knife from Charlie, and the rest I just don't remember.
6 uninterrupted minutes. OJ puts himself, hypothetically, at the scene of the crime.
The Chapter 6 is called The Night in Question. And you write in the book, now picture this and keep in mind that this is
purely
hypothetical.
hypothetical.
Yes. Why don't you tell me what might have happened on the night of June 12th, 1994? And let's just walk through the night.
Well, first of all, this is very difficult for me to do this. It was very difficult for me because it's hypothetical. I know and I accept the fact that people are going to feel whatever way they're going to feel. You know, in the book, the hypothetical is...
Charlie pulls that up.
Charlie. This guy Charlie shows up, the guy who I had recently become friends with. I don't know why he had been by Nicole's house, but it told me you wouldn't believe what's going on over there. And I remember thinking, well, whatever's going on over there has got to stop, right? So we kind of hooked up together, and you know, I'm kind of broad stroking this. We go over. Get in the Bronco and go over.
Let's just go back and do the details. Where did you park?
To the detail.
You park
in the hypothetical in the alley.
Right. You put on a wool cap and gloves.
In the hypothetical, I put on a cap and gloves.
Right.
Yeah.
You reached under the seat for?
A knife. I always kept a knife in the car for the crazies and stuff because you can't travel with a gun. And I remember Charlie saying, you ain't bringing that. And I didn't, right? But I believe he took it.
Charlie took the knife?
Yeah, in the book.
Yeah. The back gate, you go through the back gate?
Yes.
And it was open or broken or?
I don't recall.
Okay.
I go to the front and I'm looking to see what's going on. And I can see that it appears like Nicole had candles all the time. She really did, to keep her overhead down, I think. And music was on, and while I was there, a guy shows up. You know?
So Ron Goldman comes in the back gate.
Yeah, a guy that I really didn't recognize. I may have seen him around, but I really didn't recognize him to be anyone. In the mood I was in, I started having words with him.
He says to you, I just came by to return a pair of glasses. Judy left them at the restaurant.
Yeah, words to that effect, yes. And I don't know if I believed it or didn't believe it. It was pretty much immaterial because, you know, I was more concerned about everything that was going on, you know, and was fed up with it, I guess. And
you get into a fight. Nicole comes out.
A verbal
fight.
Got a little loud, and by that time, Nicole had come out, and we started having words about who is this guy, why is he here, what's going on.
And she says, this is my house, get the F out of here.
Yes, and which I didn't like because, once again, this is the same person, and if you read the book, you'll see some things that happened in the 2 weeks leading up to this that were very, very irritating, you know. And I think Charlie had followed this guy in, wanted to make sure there was no problem, and he brought the knife. As things got heated, I just remember Nicole fell and hurt herself. And this guy kind of got into a karate thing. And I said, well, you think you can kick my ass? And I remember I grabbed a knife. I do remember that portion, taking a knife from Charlie. And to be honest, after that, I don't remember. Except I'm standing there and there's all kind of stuff around and
what kind of stuff?
Blood and stuff around. You know, I hate to say this, but this is hypothetical. I'm sorry. Right. I know we got to back up again.
Right. That's okay. I want to back up.
This is hard.
This is hard. I know. I want to back up
to try to make people think that I'm.
I know. You wrote in the book, I had never seen so much blood in my life.
Yes.
You're covered, the scene. Can you describe it?
It's hard for me to describe it, I'm telling you. I don't think any two people could be murdered the way they were without everybody being covered in blood. And of course, I think we've all seen the grisly pictures after. So yeah, I think everything would have been covered in blood.
And what goes through your mind at a time like that?
I don't know. It's like, what happened?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You write about removing a glove before taking the knife from Charlie.
You know, I had no conscious memory of doing that, but obviously I must have because they found the glove there.
And blacking out. Have you ever blacked out before?
Not to my knowledge.
No.
No. Of course, if something like this would take place in anybody's life, if it were to happen, I would imagine it's something that you would probably automatically have trouble wrapping your mind around it. It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible.
Then you see bloody footprints and you decide to take off.
Yes. Actually, I believe Charlie kept saying, we got to get out of here.
In the book, you describe taking off your shoes, your pants, and your shirt and dropping it in a bundle. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And do you remember what happened?
Because what are you going to do with it? You know, somebody's got to get rid of, as you may have called during the trial, is wear the bloody clothes. So somebody had to get rid of the bloody clothes.
Right. And you had left your keys and wallet in your pants pocket, and you had to go back and get it?
You know, to be honest, I think I know that to be true, yes. Yes.
And Charlie is hysterical, screaming, Jesus Christ, OJ, Jesus Christ. And you tell him to shut up.
Yeah, he's in a panic. He was in a panic, and I'm telling him to shut up. Let's get out of here.
So you get back in the car, you take in your clothes, put them in the bundle.
And drove back and parked a block away because I knew the limo would be there, and came across the backyard through the 2 tennis courts and, you know, came through the house.
So you went through the neighbors?
Neighbors, yeah. He had a tennis court, then I had a tennis court.
And you go into the house, and what happens in the house?
I ran upstairs to take a shower. I actually ran upstairs and took some of my bags and came back downstairs and put them out front.
And Charlie Ehrlich is someone you personally know.
I personally know him. And I've known him for years. And he's known me as other people. Because when you do an investigation, you don't just go to them always as yourself. Okay? And he one time said to me, you must think I'm really stupid, man. And I'm like, You said it. I know who you are. I'm like, well, you didn't figure it out for 3 years until I told you who I was. So it's hard to explain. It's like they didn't want me to know him personally, so I had to kind of go around the producer's back to begin dialogue with Charlie without letting them know, because I didn't want to I wasn't trying to backstab these people. I was trying to help them. And they tried to snake me out of deals, and they barred me out of studio lot once. They wouldn't let me go to the meeting, even though I set up the meeting. So I got this bad taste in my mouth. And I talked to Charlie days ago. Like, I could call him right now, stick him on this microphone. Usually he'll answer his phone.
But he won't admit to any part.
He will say, I don't want to talk about the past. Now, the problem is he's acknowledging that past exists. If you read the articles that have been leaked and printed, he doesn't deny it. He says, I don't want to talk about the past. The past is the past.
Okay, so Charlie Ehrlich is connected to the DeCavalcante.
He's Genovese.
Oh, Genovese, because the New Jersey.
He's Jewish. The Jews couldn't be made into the mafia. So he's Genovese, Meyer Lansky crew. In his story, he talks about Vincent Allo, who they used to call Jimmy Blue Eyes, who is very close to Meyer Lansky. Meyer Lansky, they became the Genovese. That was Vito Genovese, Meyer Lansky, Lucky Luciano. These are the OG mobsters. Murder Inc., a lot of those guys were Jewish, okay? They killed Dutch Schultz, Chuck the Bug Workman, right? The Jews and the Italians created the mafia, okay? That's fact, okay? And even Lucky Luciano said, always trust Meyer, always listen to Meyer. They couldn't be made because they had this racial thing against each other. But Meyer Lansky never went to jail. He lived to be in his 80s. Joey Ippolito worked for Meyer Lansky. They ran the speedboats. Don Arano, Ben Kramer, Bobby Cicenti, Sal Magluta, all those cocaine cowboy stuff. That's OJ Simpson. You just can't connect the dots right away. So, but staying with the night of the murders. So OJ is chipping the golf balls, and he flips out. And he's like, "Get in the Bronco. We're going to Nicole's."
Why didn't OJ just pay the debt that? So you're saying Nicole owed a debt. Charlie Ehrlich wanted to collect on the debt.
Joey Ippolito sends Ehrlich as his muscle and enforcer and goes, "Go get a bunch of money from OJ Simpson for Faye, Nicole, and Keith Z."
Okay.
That's in the confession.
And
They name them in the confession, in the screenplay. Charlie says, I got bosses, you got bosses. Joey needs his money.
And what kind of money are we talking about?
Like 80 grand. They say 50,000 back then. You crank it up, it's 82.5.
Okay. And that could have been, OJ could have easily just paid that.
And he should have.
Yeah.
He fucked up. And OJ knows he did. That's why I told the bounty hunter, his bondsman, he said, I should have just got on my plane that night. Because he asked him in Vegas. They had to revoke OJ's bail. And he had to come back, and the guy tells the story of the A&E special. And he goes, I should have just got on my plane.
Okay, so according to this theory that you've figured out, OJ decides to go to Nicole Brown's condo
with Charlie,
mm-hmm. to collect.
Not to collect, to mess with them. OJ's the millionaire. I've said this in my other interviews, and I'm not trying to repeat stuff, but the key elements to your audience may not be a crossover audience. When it's not, it's an extortion. Let's think of it like the mafia first. The mob versus gangs are a little different on how they extort people, okay? A mafia extortion would be, I fronted you a bunch of coke, and your girlfriend, your ex-wife, right? Her too, and her friend Faye, and Keith Z.
Faye Resnick.
Yes. And the people at Mezzaluna. Now, it doesn't mean Joey and Charlie gave you cocaine. It means their guys gave it to you too, right? Now, who's the alpha male? Joey Ippolito. He's running the show. He had people murdered. This guy was the devil. Okay, I kind of respect him a little too, but this guy was basically like the devil. Okay? Ehrlich's the muscle. He's the fall guy, right? Joey wants his money. Just pay it up, OJ. We got bosses. You got bosses, And he's trying to plead with him. And all OJ had to really say was, to be honest, is, I'll take care of it. Tell Joey, chill him out. But what does OJ do instead? He goes and catches 2 bodies. Now, what would have been the smarter thing to do there? How would you have handled something like that?
Well, OJ definitely had the resources to just pay whatever it was, whether it was 20, 30,
He got 50 grand.
50, even if it was 100.
Who cares?
So
You want to go to jail? You want to murder your children's wife? You want to go kill a boy who was in the wrong place at the wrong time, who had nothing to do with anything?
So at this time, when they decide to go to Nicole's condo, he still has a flight that he's going to catch.
The limo's on the way.
The limo's on the way, and he decides, all right, I'm going to go to Nicole's
crazy.
house with Charlie. So they pull up in the white Bronco.
What's OJ known for at USC? What he set a record in?
What?
4x relay.
Oh, the
Yeah, speed. So in his head, I'll go race over there.
Well, they're not doing it on foot though. They're driving
I
over there.
just want to bring some levity, if that's the word.
What's the distance between the Rockingham Mansion and
5 minutes.
Bundy Drive?
5 minutes.
Okay.
I've driven it.
Okay. So they go over there and they get out the car. What do? Knock on the door, or do they see Nicole and Ron in the front already?
So, okay. So this is how I've told this story this way. I wasn't there. Okay. I'm not God. I don't know everything Ehrlich says, how truthful he is, right? We don't know how truthful OJ is. Okay. But if I was to mesh them all together, all the Charlie's version on the tape, Charlie's version in the screenplay, Charlie's manuscript, his notes, OJ's book, OJ's interviews, I've seen every interview OJ's ever done. I've memorized them almost.
And then the LAPD has a theory as
Correct.
well.
So let's combine them all together, okay? Let's mesh them all together. They pull out front first in the Bronco. They have to know if she's home, okay? They're not in the back yet. Now that road's very narrow, Bundy. You can't really park on that street. They pull up and they scope it out for a second, okay? This is about 10, this would technically be 10:25. I'll give you the minute. It's 10:25. They scope it for a second and they pull around to the back alley. OJ tells you he parks by a fence on the left side. There's a fence. I've seen it. There's like a driveway that kicks out on the left side. I believe he parked by this fence.
What would be the cross street off of Bundy on that, if you remember?
It's Bundy and Dorothy and San Vicente. It's like a square. Dorothy is the road that Ron Goldman parks his car on, where there's this big tree, they call it. He parks on Dorothy. So Dorothy and Bundy is where she lives. Now, when they go to the back alley, they go behind the condo and they park in the alley. It's quiet. It's dead silent. And OJ and Charlie sit in that Bronco and say, what's going on? OJ pulls a knife out that he's taken out of his house. And Charlie's like, what are you doing? Like, Charlie's not there to murder someone. That's how he tells his story too, is, what are you doing, dude? You're putting the burglar cap on. You got the gloves on. He's like, you look like a psycho. Give me the knife. So OJ tells you in his book, Charlie took the knife. What they're doing is they're trying to confuse you that there's only one knife. There's actually two. Charlie has a knife on him too. Mob guys carry knives and guns, okay? So he says Charlie took the knife. So I go into the alley and I look and I see there's candles and I hear music. So now OJ's telling you he's stalking Nicole, right? How does he get in the back? Oh, if you just give it a little nudge, it would open. That's not true. He actually stole her keys. OJ had her key. I found this out later because she told her friend, oh, my key's missing to my house. OJ took her key, okay? To stalk her. That's what his thing was. He used to stalk her. He used to watch her have sex with other men. He watched Keith Z do this through the window. It's a famous story. So as I go in, I'm looking around and he tells you in his Judith Regan interview, I see candles. I think she wanted to keep her overhead down. I hear it, music's on. And when I'm there, a guy shows up. And that's Ron Goldman. Now, this is where where's Charlie during this? Okay. Is Charlie out front seeing Ron Goldman come in? I don't know. Is Charlie still sitting in the Bronco while OJ's in there by himself? Maybe. Or did they come in together? Now, when OJ comes in, he says, well, this guy showed up. I believe Nicole and Ron are already there. This is through my investigation. I think they're already there. When OJ comes through the back with Ehrlich, He tries to say Charlie followed him in. I don't think he followed him in. I believe OJ and Charlie come in there through like two bowls of china shop, through the back gate. They want to see what's up. They're going to bang on Nicole's door. This guy just showed up to my effing house, right? You fucked up. You guys pay him. You know what I mean? Like one of these kind of weird, super awkward situation. And I believe Ron Goldman's there talking to Nicole, and they're out by the door, and the door's wide open. They're standing in the doorway. They're not inside the house. Ron never goes in. So the evidence suggests they're talking by the front door when they show up. Now, from there, you can ask me a question right from here, but that's what I believe. The Broncos parked, lights off, killed engine. They go inside. There's Goldman talking. He's holding a white envelope, which has Judith's glasses in it. The mom, they call her Judita, German name. Okay, they call her Judith, but they call her Judita. He's holding this envelope. What's going on? Do they think it's drugs? I don't know. And OJ tells you in his book, he says to Goldman, I heard all you guys are dealing on the side. What are you doing here? So it's this super awkward situation. Ehrlich's there. OJ says Ehrlich's there. We've got Goldman trapped. I'm blocking him from the rear. Ehrlich's blocking him from the front. Like OJ fluctuates with like between the book, the interview. So no one fully knows exactly, but I'm just giving you like the investigative. They're outside. Nicole's barefoot. She's holding a menu in her hand, like she's either ordering takeout or something. They find the menu under it blows under the fence. She's not wearing shoes. She comes out to let him in. They say the gate's broken. So when he buzzes it, she has to come out.
So how does going over there to bother her or to agitate her over a debt turn into a full-scale homicide?
Well, let's put ourselves in OJ's mindset right here. The limo's coming. He's supposed to get on a plane. Why is he even over there? Why? Nicole is not his wife. They're divorced. If a guy showed up, a young, good-looking guy, it doesn't mean they're hooking up. There's no evidence that they ever slept together. People tried to say all this. There's no evidence of that. She knew Ron. She hung out with him twice with other friends, too. There were two other friends of Ron Goldman, okay? They barely knew each other.
So you're saying there was no sexual relationship?
No.
Yeah, I was thinking that because if there was a sexual relationship between Ron and Nicole, maybe Nicole would have just invited him inside.
Right.
They're talking at the front door.
Right.
And he apparently came from the Mezzaluna restaurant to return these glasses or something.
He was going out with Stuart Tanner, his friend. His birthday was coming up. He was supposed to meet him out at the El Cantina, whatever they call this place. And he was dressed nice. He had these like stylish white boots on. He wasn't planning on hooking up with Nicole. He was meeting his friend in like 20 minutes.
Plus, Nicole had her two kids inside.
Yes.
And was this a two-story?
Yeah, it's pretty big. So they're upstairs asleep. How and for OJ, and again, it's like, OJ, how do you know they're asleep? It's only 10:30. You go over there like a bull in a china shop, like a wild man.
But you could, if you're OJ, you might see this young, handsome guy and just assume, oh, they must be involved.
Sure, and it sets him off like a time bomb.
Yeah.
He's already so mad at Joey. He's mad at Ehrlich. He's got to get on a red-eye flight. He's already agitated. Ehrlich's pissed off. Joey's on the run. He walked off Pensacola. He's like a fugitive, and that's why I believe he needed the cash, because I think he was on the run for a year. They didn't find him till December of that year. He literally was on the run. He flipped informant. It was FBI informant. He was a rat. His brother said he was a rat. So he's in LA, but they don't know where he is. Okay. So I think he says, go get my money. I need the quick cash. Go extort OJ. He has no allegiance to him, man, to be honest. Mob guys, they don't have allegiance to some black athlete that he's been blowing his coke for free for 6 months or however. Supposedly they knew each other for years. Okay. But okay, to answer your question, we have 4 angry people in a small, dark space.
No.
That place was tiny. They call it a killing cage.
What was the name of the guy that Nicole did have sex with that OJ was aware of?
Keith Lomswitch.
Keith. How much time prior had Nicole been involved with this guy, Keith, that OJ was aware of?
Keith was the manager of Mezzaluna, of all 3 of them, Beverly Hills, Brentwood, and Aspen. He met Nicole skiing in 1992, the beginning of 92. So Keith had known her about a year and a half, almost, is that 2 years? It's almost like 2.5 years total, but they didn't talk for a while at the end. But Keith was the first real boyfriend, sort of, that OJ knew about. And that's why he shows up at the house, shakes his hand. He's giving Nicole a massage. And he shows up. And Keith's like, oh my God, I thought he was going to kill me. I know Keith. I've spoke to him many times.
Wasn't one of the 911 calls and you hear OJ that Nicole made, you hear OJ in the back yelling, yes, and you're having sex with...
That's 93. That's Cato's there. That's at Gretna Green before she moves into Bundy.
Is OJ referring to Keith as the guy she's messing around with?
What's so weird. So when he yells, I don't want hookers and drugs around my kids, what he's talking about is, this story is just so crazy, this whole case. So Keith Z was fiancéed. He had a fiancée. I won't say her name because she's litigious. And she was married to Larry Elder.
Okay.
So someone can figure it out.
White
she
woman.
Was a prostitute for Heidi Fleiss. She was known as this, and she was busted. Okay. I've spoke to her before. I tried to see if she would help out in any way. You can't make this up. She plays a body double for Anna Nicole Smith on the movie Naked Gun 33 1/3, where OJ's on the set. Remember, he's Norwood or whatever he is on it. She goes up to OJ. This is the night of that call. This is October 93. She walks up to OJ and goes, oh yeah, you know, Keith is, that's my fiance. Keith used to sleep with your ex-wife. And he's like, what? Who are you? She looks like Anna, she's blonde. She's playing the double, right? She sets OJ off like a time bomb. He drives straight from the set, straight to Nicole's house, and knows that she's a prostitute and into drugs. And that's why he yells at her, I don't want this. They threw a party for her. Nicole threw a party for Keith and her to get engaged. This is how you can't even make this up. And that's what OJ's yelling about. He's yelling about her. I don't want these prostitutes and the drugs around my kids. And he's slamming the door. Will you just get out of here, OJ? He's back again. That's based on her. That's based on the set of Naked Gun. And no one ever knew that. And I didn't know it either until Keith told me about it, basically. Had to tell me this story.
So you actually met Keith Z?
I know Keith, yeah.
Okay. And you met him as a result of investigating this case?
I've known him for over a year.
Okay. All right.
I wanted him to help. I've gone to all these OJ players to like bring the media, and a lot of them are scared. They're afraid, They're famous because of this. They still get calls by reporters. Now here comes some kid, Chris Todd, they never heard of, and goes, did you know OJ had an accomplice? You know there were 2 killers? You know there was a massive cover-up? Do you guys want to bring justice to Nicole and Ron Goldman? And then they just get weird, man. Well,
most people don't want to follow a theory unless it's backed by the LAPD, unless it's got some official backing. Yeah. Okay, so how does this end up in a double homicide? Who gets out of the Bronco? Well, we don't know, but you're assuming OJ gets out first.
All 4 people are there. That's end of story. Ehrlich's shoe prints and blood are there. His hat's in the Bronco. There's multiple fingerprints that are unidentified at the crime scene. His blood's there. Blood evidence comes back. It doesn't match OJ, Ron, or Nicole. Whose is it? There's blood in the Bronco that doesn't match. I believe Ron Goldman punched the crap out of Charlie Ehrlich. I think he's bleeding. And I do believe OJ was struck. And I know everyone says there's not a scratch on him. He's got this cut on his finger, his ring finger. That's either himself stabbing himself as he's hitting Nicole, right? Or Ehrlich hits him as they're both wildly swinging on Ron Goldman. It's possible. That's a knife wound. They said, Fuhrman said the dog bit him. The dog is in this fight too. It's possible. Looking at it, it looks like it's cuts. It looks like it's struck by a knife. There's a lot of contention about that. And a lot of guys don't swell. They don't bleed. If I got punched in the face, you may not see it. Watch a boxing match after 12 rounds. These guys are like standing there. Hey, what's up? Like, you don't know what someone's going to react to a punch. And it's hours later too. Okay. When they see OJ, it's like it's 12 hours, I guess. It's 12 midnight to 12 noon, But anyway, a fight ensues, an argument. That's why OJ says this guy got in a karate thing. And I remember Nicole fell and hurt herself. They slugged Nicole. OJ whacks her.
And then
She's down.
And then Ron Goldman is just.
Ron's like, what, hey, hey, hey. That's why he yells, and Robert Heidster hears him say, hey, hey, hey. The guy walking the dog in the alley across the street, he hears, hey, 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 and then he hears a deep voice yell back. And they tried to say, oh, that's racist. He's saying this is a black guy. Robert Heidster didn't say he was black. He said, I heard a deep voice respond to a guy say, hey, hey, hey.
So how many times is Ron Goldman stabbed?
Over 25.
And how many different types of weapons are used on Ron Goldman?
2.
Okay, and this comes from the coroner, the first coroner.
Dr. Erwin Golden, who's kicked off the case because he said there were 2 knives.
And they can determine that just by the way the wounds look. That
if you stab straight in, you can tell if it's a single edge or double edge. Anything that is a slicing motion, you cannot tell. Robert Shapiro was a master of this. So was Barry Scheck. So was Peter Neufeld. They knew, and they put a lot of doubt into people's minds about they went over every wound. Nicole stabbed over 15 times. Ron's like 30 times. There's differing numbers. Ron is hit in the head, the face, the neck, the ear. His ear's almost cut off. He's hit in the head. Nicole stabbed in the head. This is wild stabbing. This is like, and on Goldman, that's 2 people. That's 2 people stabbing him. There's 2 wounds. One's on this flank, and I think the other's in the chest. And that is a double-edged blade that goes straight in.
It's almost difficult to believe that OJ could unleash that much violence on 2 people. Have you ever questioned it? Like, why would OJ want to unleash this type of violence? This is not a quote unquote normal homicide.
With a knife, too.
This is a vicious, brutal, very rare type of homicide.
Yeah. Took minutes. This is not fast. This took 2 to 3, 4 minutes to kill both of them.
And that's why a lot of people will, especially, this case divided people by race. Most white people believed OJ did it. Most black people didn't believe he did it. But some people don't believe he did it just because of the vicious nature of it. This is a successful football player. Yes. He's an announcer. He's a spokesperson for major corporations. And now all of a sudden he's a double murderer. Help us,
I did an interview recently about a child's murder, and I talk about possession of like the devil or a dark spirit. I truly believe OJ had a dark side to him. I do. He beat Nicole many times. He did not hit her once or twice, like he said. Absolutely not. Read Faye Resnick's book. Read all the testimony of Faye Resnick. Read about Nicole's friends, Cora Fishman. You will see that he beat her many times over many years.
Yeah, we saw the photos of her face one time.
She was punched in the face.
It was
pretty
bruised
Did you punch
up.
a woman in the face? So what I'm saying is he's capable of violence.
And where is OJ from originally?
Oakland.
San
Francisco.
San Francisco. But
Potrero Hill, they call it.
Potrero Hills. It's a rough area.
Right.
If you grow up there, you learn a lot of things.
Right.
Some people say that the Potrero Hills came out of OJ that day.
Yes.
You believe that?
Yes. Because it happened. And I grew up with OJ on the Wheaties box. We knew him as Juice. He was a hero. And he really broke the race barrier. He's one of the first interracial real couples in the public eye. If you really look back in the 70s, that was frowned upon. He had an affair on Marguerite with Nicole. He had that for a while, okay? But they became public figures. OJ transcended race. That's why they say that they don't even know if OJ ever said this. I'm not OJ. I'm not black. I'm OJ, right? They don't know if OJ ever said that. That's a misnomer. But what I'm saying is he was like the face of football almost. He was on a bad team, so he never won anything big. But he was loved by everyone. He was good looking. He had the features. He had the voice. He was charismatic. He was funny. I didn't want OJ to be guilty either. I was a kid. I looked up to the Bruce Jenner, who ended up, marrying into the family and having connect. Like, these were the heroes of ours in the 70s and the 80s. It'd be like Michael Jordan commits a double homicide. Yeah, you don't want to believe he did it. And I think the jury even really felt, if there's any doubt, he's out. He's off. Like, if we don't see something like super blatant, there's no video of him doing it. He doesn't confess to it. He denies it the whole way. He does an interrogation with no lawyer. That's why they get rid of Weitzman, because like, why did you let him talk to Van Natter and Lang? And they replaced him with Shapiro. Through Roger King does this, which is a whole nother story that's insane. But my point is, I think OJ snapped. I think he was in a fugue state that Pablo Fengve says. When you get so angry, you don't even remember. He tried to play that card. Ehrlich's already a scumbag. I'm sure he's been involved in murders. I'm not going to say too much about it. Okay, he's been busted with 5 assault rifles and a silencer. Do you need a silencer? What do you have a silencer for? To shoot people without anyone knowing. Okay, so what I'm saying is, I think just in human nature, because you're good at this too, we're all capable. If we're really angry, if we're fuming, and OJ was obsessed with Nicole. He was in love with her. Even then, he never could get off her. Why would he be stalking her still? Why is he watching her with Keith? He was still obsessed with her.
But he had a fine young new girl named Paula Barbieri, right?
He had many of them. He cheated on every woman he ever was with. He had Tawny Katane. Watch the story about the husband tells OJ showed up at the thing. He had multiple relationships always going. The problem is him and Ehrlich are already pissed off. I believe Nicole yells at him. I think she says, F you, get out of here. That's said in the interview by Judith Regan. She talks about that. She says, F you, get out. Yeah, and which I didn't like, and he starts to look off and he's like, and this is from the same person. He calls her person instead of Nicole. Same person who, if you read the book a couple weeks before this, had done some things that were really irritating. And he's trying to tell you, I'm capable of killing her.
Okay, so these 4 people are in this small space, and 2 people end up dead, Nicole and Ron. So now OJ and Charlie, they got to run they got a boogie to the Bronco.
Yep.
And tell us again, where's the Bronco at? Because the condo is on Bundy, but they're not parked in
They're parallel to Bundy, so there's an alley behind the house.
They're behind the house, parallel to Bundy.
Parallel to Bundy.
They're not on Bundy.
No.
Okay. And they came in only one car, OJ's. Okay. Now,
White Bronco.
But Charlie has a car at some point.
Parked at Rockingham.
Okay. And that's parked somewhere. Is it on OJ's property?
On Rockingham.
On the street. Mm-hmm. Okay. So they drive back to Rockingham.
Yep.
And I'm assuming that we saw the photos, the LAPD photos of the inside of the Bronco. There was some blood on the steering wheel. It seems like
all over the place.
But it doesn't seem like it's not puddles of blood. It's smearings of blood.
This is part of, and this is just the quick note, because OJ tells you this in his Ross Becker interview. There was 1 droplet of blood total.
No,
there's blood on the steering wheel, the column, the handle, the door, the floor, the back seat, the console, both sides, underneath, the dashboard. That's not 1 drop.
But it's smearings of blood.
It's blood smeared all over the inside of the Bronco.
But it would seem like, based on those crime scene photos, that there should be more blood in the car. So here's my question.
Yeah.
Did they clean themselves up in the alley before they got into the Bronco?
No, they have nothing to clean themselves with.
Well, there's blood on their shoes.
Their clothes.
Okay. There's not any blood on the floor of the car, or is there?
Floorboard. There is, on the passenger side, there's a partial shoe print blood. Now, either they're laying the shoe down in blood. OJ strips his clothes down. This is what people have to understand. When Alan Park sees OJ, 6-foot black man, walk into the house wearing all black clothing, it's his skin. He's not dressed. He's in socks and boxer shorts. That's it. Okay? He strips his clothes. He tells you that in his book.
But where does he strip?
I looked at right in the alley.
In the alley on Bundy.
At Bundy.
Okay. He strips his clothes before he gets into the Bronco.
Before they get in the Bronco, before they exit there's no shoe prints outside. It stops. So when they're in the alley, the walkway, we'll call it the walkway. It's very long. When they're coming back to the alley, right, before they hit the gate, he strips his clothes and takes his shoes off.
And do we know if Charlie does the same thing?
I assume he strips off. I can't say too much about what he says.
But you've had some deep conversations with Charlie, right?
Not about June 12th too much, because he doesn't want to. Once he tells it to me, it's on the tape. Let's say it that way.
Yeah, because there's an interview of Charlie that's been recorded
that no one can hear.
Why can no one?
Because Eric hides the tape. Okay. And the attorneys and the Discovery refused to give it to the LAPD, and the LAPD refused to go get the tape.
Well, they would have to know where to subpoena the tape from. From Eric, right?
He lives in L.A. It would take 9 minutes to find where he lives.
Well, let's just remind all of our listeners out there that there's no statute of limitations on murder. So technically, Charlie can still be charged. Is Eric considered an accessory?
If he says he's a journalist.
And then Joey Ippolito,
he's dead.
He passed.
He died 2006.
Okay. So it's only...
You can only get Ehrlich. You can't reopen OJ because you have a double jeopardy. You could there's no conspiracy to commit murder. There's no proof of that. You could never retry. It's the only way you can retry someone on double jeopardy is that there's a conspiracy, that something beforehand happened. There's no proof of that. So you can't use OJ as a witness. You cannot subpoena OJ. Nothing. The real evidence against Charlie Ehrlich is on that audio confession tape, and then matching his bloody shoe prints, his hat in the Bronco, right? You match the evidence to what he confesses. Oh, I got rid of the shoes. I got rid of the bloody shoes and the clothes. Okay? That's how you would get him. Now, if he goes, oh, I made it all up. Okay? If he wants to say, oh, I made it all up. Well, your job as the police, you have to know if he's telling the truth or not, right? And you have to use evidence. And evidence is a loaded term. That's Charlie's shoe print in blood.
Okay, and that's not a Bruno Malley shoe print.
That's a parallel line shoe print. It's a 10.5. OJ is a 12 and it's a Z shape. Okay?
And I remember when
Not the same shoe at all, by any means.
Effley Bailey, during the trial, told the jury that there were more footprints at the crime scene.
They all said it. They said there's someone else there.
Other than the Bruno Malley footprints, there are other footprints
There are
in
5 other shoe prints, and I have most of them. This is one they put more in the blood coloring.
And we'll
10.5. Oh, and what size shoe does Charlie Ehrlich have? 10.5. And what size hat size is he? 7 1/8. And what size is the hat in the Bronco? 7 1/8.
So you also got a photo of what you're saying is Charlie's hat.
In the Bronco on the floor.
That's on the driver's side on the floor.
On the driver's side because Ehrlich parks the Bronco, not OJ.
And that's a LAPD photo, crime scene photo that you got.
Yes, but here's the thing. See, sometimes they don't show the hat. So sometimes when you see that picture, the hat's not there. It's not always there. See, they've removed it and then they snap photos.
Now in this photo, go back to that photo of the hat.
Item 27.
Those item evidence markers are usually
blood.
They're usually yellow plastic things. It looks like they're just using
paper.
Mm-hmm. Was that ever questioned why they're just using?
I don't know. No, these mean there's blood. So every time there's that piece of paper, there's blood. There's blood on that hat.
And that's 100% not OJ's hat.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Never would be. They called him bobblehead as a kid, large head.
Now, who does LAPD say that hat belongs to? How does the LAPD?
They never talk about it.
They never talk about that.
They talked about it once with Susan Brockbank, who was a hair and fiber expert who Marcia Clark talked to for it's in the transcript. You can find it if you look hard enough. And they show on a board, they literally put up the hat. It's there. Everybody's looking at this hat and no one's asking whose hat is that? If it was OJ's hat, wouldn't you paint the picture that he put his hat down, right? Reached in the back, grabbed the beanie cap, and you would talk about this as an event, a sequence of events. They never mention it once. She goes, what about that hat, that wool hat? Oh yeah, there could be hair in there, and we examined that hat. Whose hat is it? What are you guys talking about? It's insane.
So
it's insane.
All this evidence is still stored at LAPD.
Yeah, and LAPD can't access it because it's under a court order that they did some clandestine. I have pictures of the court order that only the DA's office can access the evidence. When the LAPD told me that they were going to run all the evidence, they couldn't even run it. More deception. They haven't. I mean, I'll put a challenge out to the LAPD, and I know some of the people there. And I think they're good people. I challenge you to come on one of these podcasts and let's go over the evidence. I challenge you to look at the evidence at all.
Now, the LAPD is going to say because it's an open case.
We can't look at it.
It's still an open case.
It's still open.
Yeah.
But, wait, Alex. So it's open case. Then why don't you go get the tape?
But they also believe, I'm sure the Marcia Clark, Christopher Darden, they still believe OJ Simpson did it. So it should be considered a closed case where the number one suspect was acquitted. Is that such a thing? Can you close a case even though your number?
Technically, to me, the way I look at it is, it's an open case, only in the fact that maybe there was someone else there. OJ's acquitted.
Accomplices.
Right. OJ's out. We don't know really if he had help. So when we did a FOIA request, we were denied. Okay. We paid the lawyer to do it, and we got this whole spiel, this whole like book, okay, from LAPD saying it's an open case. We don't show people, civilians, open case. Now watch this. In the article, when they asked Tony M., who's retired, of course, he's gone. Like, he's gone in a year. He's not there anymore. Tony M. is quoted in the article with Bob Norman. They ask him, because the reporter had to ask him, right? What are you guys doing about Ehrlich? What is it? Do you guys think this is true? That case is closed. We're never reopening OJ. In the same breath, in the same sentence, but if somebody brought us something, we'd probably have to look at it. Which is it?
Well,
They still can't get it right to this day.
it's probably going to take many years in the future before they decide to even revisit it. But let's get back to they're in the alley. They strip their clothes. Then they jump in the car. I guess they put their clothes in some sort of bag.
OJ's driving. No, there's no bag.
There's no bag.
Charlie's holding it on his lap, and that's why there's blood on the passenger side of the console.
Okay, so they drive back to,
And Ehrlich admits to this on tape.
but we don't have the tape, unfortunately.
Correct.
Okay, but that
And
tape,
I'm not going to comment on what I've heard on the tape. Let me just tell you, it'll make you sick. Like, when you hear it, your brain will go back to 1994. You will forget where you are.
and the reason this tape exists is because Charlie was interested in doing some sort of movie.
He wanted like 5 to 10 million
Okay.
to make a movie, do a tape. The tape is real. It's 20 hours long. I've heard parts of it. It exists. I know June 12th is on there. I know someone else who heard parts of June 12th on there. He's not going to admit to stabbing someone. I don't care about that. If Ted Bundy told you, I'm not Ted Bundy, do you believe him? You don't go by what a killer's narrative is. The evidence says there's 2 killers on Ron Goldman. Nicole looks like 1 knife. That's OJ. That's not Charlie. Ron is killed by 2 people, okay? And he deserves justice. The families deserve to know the truth. And if they don't want to arrest Charlie, then put OJ and Charlie in an interview together and let them tell the truth. Because I'll tell you right now, the LAPD, they're never going to open that case.
Has Charlie ever just done interviews for?
Yes.
Would he come on a podcast like this?
Not about June 12th.
Would he come on Streets and Scholars?
You can ask him.
But the obvious question is to ask him about June 12th, though.
And he'll snowball you, and he'll say, I don't want to talk about the past. I made it all up. It's fiction.
But he's not going to deny a relationship with OJ Simpson.
He can't. There's photos of him with OJ for years.
Okay. All right. So what time is it now? They're in the alley about to head back to Rockingham.
OJ's driving.
OJ's driving.
Lights off. Not smart. Lights off. Turns the wrong way on Bundy. Does a U-turn. People never could figure this out. He flips a U-ey because he has to go right first. He flips a U-ey, comes flying back through San Vicente, lights off, almost hits Jill Shively.
Okay, wait up. If they're in the alley, they're
Coming to Dorothy.
going to Dorothy. So
Take
then
a left.
they make a left to Bundy, and then which way on Bundy they go?
They go right.
They go right.
But that's the wrong way.
Right would be south.
Correct.
And then he busts a U-turn and goes north on Bundy.
Correct. And this is what no one could figure out. This is why Robert Heischer says, I saw a Jeep-like vehicle, white, come ripping towards, he's on Dorothy. He's looking across Bundy. He's looking, he sees it go right. Everyone says, no, he had to go left. He's French. He went right. He took a right.
So he didn't see the U-turn.
No.
Okay. And if they,
Because he would have hit Wilshire.
Yeah.
Wilshire's right there.
and that takes him away from going to Rockingham.
So everyone was like, how's he getting the... What I believe happened is as he comes down, lights off, there's a car, right, coming. He can't go left, so he just rips it right. You see what I mean?
Deliberately do the U-turn.
So just to get out of there, just to get off the crime scene. He whips it, and as he goes down, this is the funny thing, when you go look at the street, and I don't know if the street was the same way it was in 1994, but when I went to the crime scene, I walked it. I come to the street, and I turn right, and I start driving. When you look to this road to the left, its mouth is like this. The road is not like this. It's like this. And I was like, wow, that'd be really convenient for him to just flip a U-turn right through the mouth of that. No K-turn at all. Because Bundy's kind of narrow there, but it's just really weird the way the sidewalk jets out. You'd have to see it to know what I'm talking about.
So you're saying that once he does the U-turn on Bundy, he shoots all the way to San Vicente?
He's going to blast through the light.
Meaning he's going to cross Montana and then go to San Vicente and then make a right to go west.
Left.
Oh, he's going to left
He has to go left.
to go east.
Yep.
No, I'm sorry. That making that left at San Vicente would be
He's
west.
going east.
Okay.
Oh, no, west. Sorry. Yeah.
West of Rockingham.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because he has to weave to Sunset, kind of like Rockingham's off Sunset. You have to go up off Sunset.
So according to you, the way he drove back to Rockingham, is it the same as the prosecutor's theory, except for the U-turn, except for making that?
Yeah, they never acknowledge that he U-turns.
Okay, they never acknowledge.
Saying he goes the wrong way.
But other than that, you guys agree on the path back to Rockingham.
Yeah. Cross San Vicente. He takes a left on San Vicente. Then he weaves up to Sunset, up to Rockingham. But he crashes through and almost hits Jill Shively in the car at 10:50 p.m. They don't use her as a witness, though. Marcia kicks her off the case because she goes, "You ruined my case. I know Jill. I met her. I hate Marcia Clark." I was like, "Whoa, tell me your story. Tell me more." "Yeah, I saw OJ." I go, "Did he have no shirt on?" "Yeah, I saw his bare arms." She goes, "Marcia said he was wearing a tracksuit, that he had a long sleeve." She goes, I go, "You saw his arms, huh?" She goes, "Yeah, how do you know that?" I go, "Because he's not wearing his clothes. He's stripped." She's like, "Oh my God."
So she basically sees.
I go, "Did you see somebody in the passenger seat?" I go, "You know why you didn't see it?" She goes, "No, I didn't see anybody." Because the back window's tinted, first off. Second off, when he comes whipping through, he goes in front of her. So he looks back at her like this. She sees him. She thought it was Marcus Allen at first. That's what she says. She memorizes the license plate. She's off by 1 digit. They tried to call this woman a fraud. She memorized every letter and number but one of the license plate. He looks back, "Get out of the way." And there's another kid, no one could ever find this person, in a gray Nissan. He was a grad student at UCLA, supposedly. He almost runs him off the road, too. So OJ's like, it's like a two-way boulevard, San Vicente. He's like up on the median, like he almost hits her. And then the kid's blocking him and he's like beeping, like, "Get out of the way." And he screams at her, too. So she doesn't see Ehrlich. Ehrlich, the guy's sprinkled with fairy dust. I'm just going to tell you. OJ was too. Watch your OJ's Ross Becker interview. He takes you through the tour of his house and he gives you pretty reasonable explanations of why there's a drop of blood here. "Oh, I live here. Like, I cut my hands all the time." And you're kind of like, "Oh, well, this is the air conditioner. If I ran into this air conditioner, I would have been bleeding. Look at the side of it," because he doesn't run into it. He's banging on the wall for Cato to let him in. To help him.
So what was the time leaving the alley? The time on the...
They have to be, if you got to work backwards. They almost crashed into Jill at 10:50 p.m. The murders are done at 10:45. They strip down for a minute or two. It's 10:47, 10:48. They're now going in the Bronco.
Okay. So when they get to Rockingham, I'm sure OJ or Ehrlich,
10:55.
they see the limousine, Mr. Park.
They know it's there. They don't see it.
Okay.
They know it's there. They come up Bristol Street. They cannot come up. Alan Park says he never saw the Bronco. It never pulled up. He never heard it. He never heard a door shut. When he saw OJ, nothing. No one can find the Bronco at all. That's testified under oath 10 times. Okay.
And Park comes off very credible as a witness.
He was one of the most credible people, absolutely. The problem with Alan Park was he knew it was OJ that walked in the house and he wouldn't say it was him. That's the problem. He said a 6-foot black man.
He didn't want to...
He knew it was OJ Simpson.
Yeah, but he didn't say that's OJ
He
Simpson.
wanted to give OJ an out.
Yeah. Do you think that was him doing that naturally, or did someone just say, "Hey, just say what you saw without saying names"?
And I think if the defense and the prosecution and even himself, he was confused. He didn't understand why the Bronco wasn't there. I think he was questioning himself enough of like, well, I saw a 6-foot black man walk into OJ's house. But guys, a little deductive reasoning. Was there another black man in OJ's house that night? No. Arnell says she's at the movies. She's supposedly not home. So what black man walked into the house? This is the case. This is what I mean. They're sprinkled with fairy dust, man. Like he got away with this, and even to a lot of conspiracy. I know a couple really crazy conspiracy guys. Sometimes I rationalize with them, and I'm like, I get it. Like when you did your video too, talk about Michael Nigg, talk about Brett Cantor. When I watch that from you, I go, I understand. I understand because they sounded like they were together. This kid got stabbed. He owned a club, the Dragonfly, and there were drugs and Russian mafia and 18th Street gang. And like, you're just like, so it's Ehrlich is the X factor. If you want to know the truth about June 12th, know that OJ had help. Once you open that Pandora's box, you'll see it.
And that help has nothing to do with his son, Jason.
Correct.
Okay. And you've heard that.
So it's at work. There's a time card that he's at work until midnight. Bill Deere made that up, and Discovery ID made it up too. Pablo Fendres they interviewed, and they brought on these 2 cops and a psychologist. Jason was at work.
And it doesn't have anything to do with AC Collins.
No.
Okay.
And where's AC today? No one ever finds him because he knew Joey Ippolito and he knew this was a drug thing, and AC worked for Joey. You can look it up. It's in public domain. I've tried to reach out to AC. He said he loved Nicole. He cried in the deposition, the civil deposition.
We saw that.
He threatened to beat OJ's ass. When he beat Nicole once, he goes, I'll kick your ass.
They recorded, they videotaped that deposition.
Yes.
Okay, so when they go back to Rockingham, they have to park, what, a half a block away because they don't want
They're basically, okay, it's a square. So it's Rockingham, Ashford, Bristol, Parkins. There's a street called Parkins, more cloaked. And they're on Bristol Street by the neighbor. The neighbor, he jumps the fence to the neighbor's house, which is basically the house next to him on Ashford, not Rockingham.
And parking on Ashford is out of view of the limo driver.
No, he parks on Bristol Street.
I'm sorry, he parks on Bristol.
The limo's on Ashford, facing the gate, trying to go into the gate.
Yeah, because the street is like a T.
Yeah, it's like a square. There's 4 streets. It makes a perfect square.
Okay.
He went from both gates. So Park was first at the Rockingham gate. OJ's not home. They're gone. There's no Bronco. He moves the car over to Ashford, lights off, sits there and waits.
So is OJ's house on Rockingham very close to Ashford?
It sits on both.
It sits on both.
The address is Rockingham, but there's 2 gates.
Okay, so you could actually enter the property from Ashford,
Correct.
even though the front door is Rockingham.
Yeah, the number 360 is where the Broncos parked. You see the number 360, that's the address, is technically Rockingham.
I can't believe they actually just tore that house down just because of the history.
I've been there recently too. I only saw it recently. It looks different. I'll tell you though, when you drive by there, man, and you peek in there, you get a really weird feeling, man.
They built a brand new house on that property, right?
It's white, I think.
Okay, so OJ has to enter the house through an adjacent property?
Fence, yep.
Okay.
He goes through the 2 tennis courts. He tells you that in his book. There were 2 tennis courts that sat next to each other. So I run behind the house. Their tennis court connected to mine. When you look at the map, you'll see it. He's right. They connect, and he goes behind the house, and he bangs on the wall for Cato to come out.
And what is that bang all about? That was such a big deal during the trial.
Huge deal.
They spent so much time on the...
God. Yeah.
Was it 3 of them?
Yeah, 3. Yeah. They said he ran into the air conditioner. Does that sound like... That's not running it. Air conditioner would be a smashing noise.
But during the trial, they didn't opine that OJ was doing that, or were they?
Cato kind of didn't need to say this, but because he was on the phone with Rachel Ferrara, he goes, "Did you hear an earthquake?" He told her while it was happening. So he kind of knew, I better stick to that story because I just told this witness, she was in the pretrial, and I think she was in the trial too. She was one of the first witnesses ever called in the pretrial, I believe. Rachel Ferrara, I actually met her on the phone. My point is, he signals for Cato to come out and help him to distract the limo, and he does. And Cato's a liar. Cato's a fraud.
But it seemed like Cato turned on OJ at some point after.
Not really.
It was pretend? It was fake?
Fake. Years later, he goes, "I do believe OJ did it." on Larry King. He always was friends with Larry King.
So he was Team OJ, Kato Kalin.
Absolutely.
Okay. I mean, he was living for free in a nice.
He hated Nicole. Nicole hated him, ignored him, called him a piece of crap. He was pissed off at Nicole. They actually slept together. They say they didn't. I can almost prove that they did. They had an affair. OJ knew they did too, but he was good with the kids, and OJ trusted. He was a nice guy. Look, Kato should come clean too. He walked by in the house and he saw OJ back there with no clothes on, bloody, and said, I didn't see him. And Marcia Clark goes, why didn't you walk back the path when you said you went around with a flashlight? Yeah, I heard an earthquake. I heard this bang. And he goes, yeah, I went with a flashlight. Why didn't you walk back by in the house? I don't know. I just didn't. He can't because OJ's standing right in front of him.
Okay, so the two tennis courts, one tennis court is on the other property,
Yeah.
the other tennis court's on
Like
OJ's.
Van Axel, Van something, the neighbor's name.
Yeah, and those tennis courts are still there. Even though they tore the house down,
Yes.
they built the house and kept the tennis court
Yes,
there.
yes.
Okay, so OJ gets back on the property. I guess at some point that bloody glove that Fuhrman finds is OJ's glove. But my question is, why would OJ throw this bloody glove right on the property to be found?
We could talk about that glove and Mark Fuhrman for like days. I will just say this because everybody asks me this and I lose sleep. There's a couple things I don't know about. I don't know if Fuhrman planted that glove or not. Okay. I don't know if it was stuck to OJ when he comes out of the Bronco. Why wouldn't it fall off, jump in the fence? It doesn't make sense.
Well, where Mark Fuhrman found it, it had to be either thrown there or put there.
It was placed there. There's no leaves on it. And it's been there supposedly for hours. And there's leaves and your shit everywhere, berries everywhere. I believe if you read Steven Singular's book, I'll give him a little shout out. He wrote a book called Legacy of Deception about the LAPD, the blood, the bag, and the stick. He had a source who I believe was LAPD. He worked a case called Talk Radio where the guy got killed by the Nazi. It was a movie that Oliver Stone did called Talk Radio with Bogosian, Eric Bogosian. He had a source that said, you need to look at Fuhrman. You need to look at the blood for EDTA. And he's like, what are you talking about? He lived in Colorado. He wasn't even part of the case. He was a journalist and an author. He wrote a book, Legacy of Deception. He met Carl Douglas. He met Johnny Cochran.
Carl Douglas is my main man.
That's your main man.
That's my main man right there. But you know what?
Shout out Carl Douglas.
Him and I never really had any we've had a lot of deep conversations, but not about this.
Because, well, look, and give him the benefit of the doubt. It's his client.
Yeah.
And if I came to you and said, OJ had an accomplice, OJ did it. I mean, come on. What is he? I have other clients. I don't need to go back to this. But getting basically to... I got thrown off with Carl Douglas. What are we talking about? The cover up or
there's a LAP.
The glove. Sorry, the glove. Okay, that keeps me up at night. To me, Steven Singular says the glove was in the Bronco first. That Fuhrman planted it there and rubbed it around in the Bronco. Okay, I'm just giving you one theory. When Kato tells Fuhrman, and the Bronco was open. It wasn't locked. OJ tried to say it was locked. It wasn't. It was actually open. And they had all this back and forth. So when Kato says, when they interview him at 5 a.m., 5:30 a.m., they show up, right? Kato goes, I heard an earthquake. I heard somebody was behind the house. He's talking to Fuhrman, right? Oh, interesting. Guys, hold on a sec. I'll be back. He leaves. Fuhrman leaves Kato with Van Adder and Lang, and Arnell's there too. He goes off on his own. And Singular believes he went in the Bronco with the stick. They find this stick with blood on it, a white stick. And he picks the glove back up out of the Bronco and he goes and he drops it behind where Kato said he heard the noise.
Now, wouldn't this be a glove that Charlie should have discarded?
Okay. So, no. Fuhrman takes it from the crime scene. Both gloves are.
Oh, the gloves are from the crime scene. And you're saying both gloves are at the crime scene.
I'm giving you Steven Singular's theory because I believe it's the most valid. I've tried to talk to Fuhrman. I met his manager once. I tried to talk to him. I thought it was an opportunity for him to come forward, pinch Ehrlich, get some redemption. Like, shit, there was an accomplice. Like, OJ did it. But he just wouldn't talk to me. But my point is, And Fuhrman in the trial says, well, I saw them. And that's why they always say when he goes, them. Now, Fuhrman would say, well, no, I meant the hat and the glove. Because remember, the hat and the glove are next to Goldman's boot. They're in a bush. They're underneath a bush. Singular is saying both gloves are there. And Fuhrman's the first real detective there. Remember, he's there for 2 hours without Van Ader and Lang.
Yeah, it didn't.
He's with Brad Roberts and he's with Phillips, Ron Phillips, and Brad Roberts.
So how did the prosecution explain to the jury that this glove is there? From what I understand, they said that OJ just threw it and it just magically landed right in this spot.
They try to say OJ dropped it. So they're either saying OJ's wearing the glove when he jumps back over the fence, right? Think about it. There's only a couple explanations. He's either wearing it, he's not wearing his clothes. It's not in a pocket.
Well, the gloves would have been removed first
Maybe,
in the alley when they...
Yeah, I mean, he has the cut on his finger.
At Bundy.
Yeah. He either removes them or Goldman rips it off, right? These are tight isotoner gloves. They're driving gloves.
Oh, yeah, one of them is at the crime scene for sure, 100%.
With the hat.
With the hat.
Next to the hat.
The beanie hat.
Yes.
Okay.
So the question you really have to ask yourself, the real $1 million question is, did Mark Fuhrman plant that glove at Rockingham?
I guess we'll never really know.
I don't know if we'll ever know.
Yeah, because it's bizarre of the positioning of that glove.
It's wet. They find it at 5:30, 6 a.m. Blood does not take 6 hours to dry. It doesn't. It dries in like 30 minutes. It wasn't freezing. It was in the 60s. It was summer. It was June. It didn't rain. They tried to say there was moisture and dew and all this stuff. Just hold up. There's no leaves on it. It's just sitting there. It's still moist hours later. And that's why they said Fuhrman had his jacket off and he said he had his jacket on, but then it was off and they think he put it in the jacket. He took the stick of the fence. He ripped a piece of the fence off to pick the glove up.
Yeah, but how would Mark Fuhrman be able to get the glove from the crime scene?
He drove to Rockingham.
Because there's already a bunch of cops at the crime scene.
They're beat cops. There's no detectives. He's in charge. Where's Brad Roberts? Why has he never been interviewed? He's not even listed in the thing. He's one of the first detectives there. Ron Phillips tries to say, oh, well, of course they're going to deny it, man. They're not going to say, yeah, we drove over to Rockingham at 3 a.m. Rosa Perez, that's her name, the maid. I can never get Rosa Parks, not her. Rosa Perez, whatever her name is. She says she hears hard-shoed footsteps at Rockingham. Her window is behind Rockingham. She's like the maid of the Salingers, okay? She says at 3 a.m., she hears these hard shoes, cop shoes, right? That's what she's trying to say, okay? 3 a.m. So that would be Fuhrman walking the property. Either he drops the glove in the Bronco or he dropped it there maybe and it sat there for 3 hours, maybe. I don't know.
Okay, so at this time, OJ's on the plane on his way to Chicago.
And Fuhrman interviews Rosa Lopez. He interviews her at 8 a.m. the next morning, takes no notes, makes no reference that he interviewed her. Why is he going to interview her? And why does he never go back? Why does nobody ever go interview her again, except the defense does?
Yeah,
and they make a tape of her.
Did they try to say that she was not a citizen and that she
was a witness. She saw the Bronco. When she says she walked the dog, she saw the Bronco like 10, which makes sense. It's still there. They haven't left yet. She lived next door. She says she also hears talking at 11:30 to midnight. Is that Ehrlich bringing the Bronco back, talking to Cato Kalin, who says he's outside waiting on a date in his underwear? Who he told someone this? Yeah, dude, it's like, it'll make your head explode.
All right, so once OJ and Ehrlich come back and OJ jumps the fence and goes inside the house, give me the timeline. What time is it now and how much time does he shower? How much time does he take to get ready and jump back into that limousine?
Okay. So he walks in the house. We're talking 10:55, 10:57. Cato's still standing there. Alan Park's like, let me in. He's like, what's up? Like, he just stands there by the gate. OJ calls him on the gate. I overslept. This is the famous I overslept. OJ buzzes him in through the house. Gate opens. He pulls right up to the door. He sees the bags. OJ lies. He tries to say, I went inside. I took a shower. I brought some bags down. Your bags are already outside, dude. He's trying to throw you off. He doesn't want you to know that he had already put his bags outside, okay? Because he wants to He wants to control the narrative.
The bags were there before he even left. When he's, I guess,
he leaves, they're there.
when he's chipping.
He's got his golf bags out there. He's got one of his bags. He says he brings down one bag. Look, he's got multiple bags, right? But there's luggage outside already that when Alan Park pulls up, he sees it. He pulls up right to the door. And he gets out and he's waiting for OJ. OJ showers within 5 minutes. They find blood in the drain. Not the pipe, supposedly, but they find blood in the drain, in the sink, and in the tub. And there's a blood on a light switch, too. I think it's in the bathroom.
Man, he did a terrible job at cleaning up.
Well, he has no time. He's got to be so fast. So he does it quickly. He showers, cleans up, brings the bag down. They say they see no bandage on his finger. Cato says he sees nothing. He could have lied. Cato could be lying there. Alan Park says he sees nothing. They don't see blood. They don't find blood in the Bronco, in the limousine.
Yeah, but if he's got this cut that the LAPD saying happens during this homicide, there should be some blood drops in the house.
There are.
And in the limousine, though.
They're not in the limousine, supposedly. There's 3 blood droplets, almost on wood, looks like this. There's 3 blood drops in the foyer. That's somehow they don't trample. They're like clean, like drip. I don't know how they didn't trample them. The cops were in and out of the front of the house the next day. Even that night, the early morning, they're there. I don't know how they didn't step on it. He is dripping blood. There's 6 droplets in the blood in the driveway, too.
Okay. So does OJ make it to this flight, or is it delayed, or does he catch another one? Does he get on his original plane?
Yes.
Wow, that's incredible that he makes this flight. And earlier, when we just started this episode of Streets and Scholars, I was saying it can't not be premeditated, but maybe he's outsmarting all of us and has this plan to commit a homicide right before he's catching a flight, so that can be his alibi, right?
I mean,
he can say, "There's no way I was involved in this. I was scheduled to get on a flight to Chicago."
The totality of the evidence. If you take Ehrlich's confession, Ehrlich's story of this extortion last minute, it just makes sense. Yeah, he could try to say, I mean, if you take here's the time frame that this is your scenario, real quick, from 10:15 p.m. to 10:55. Is that 40 minutes? So he has 40 minutes to drive over there, murder 2 people, clean up enough, rid all the evidence, come back home, shower, get dressed, clean up again, evidence, get in a Bronco and leave. 40 minutes.
Yeah, it's incredible. So Park never testifies to anything that incriminates OJ, pretty much, right?
Without saying OJ's the black man 6 foot, he says he's not. He tried to say he was sweating. I mean, look, evidence is such a loaded term, right? When you say, like, what evidence is there that OJ did it, right? Oh, well, he was sweaty and he looked like he was kind of discombobulated in the limousine. That's not evidence he murdered someone because he's sweating. It's hot. It's June. Like, I talk about this on other cases. It's like evidence is subjective. Like, the defense could say that's his innocence. The prosecution, no, and they didn't use Jill Shively. She was a witness to the crime, the getaway. He was down the street from the murder scene within the exact time of the murders. Why is she not used as a witness? Why did Robert Heischer get kicked over to the defense team? Why didn't the prosecution use him? He heard Ron Goldman getting murdered. Look, I said this in my other interview. I'm not calling them dumb. I'm saying I think they got lazy. They thought they had all this evidence, for OJ. And they salivated that we got him. And all these little things that would show someone else is there, they just were like, no, that's going to mess with what we're doing. You know what I mean? We got OJ. We got him. His blood, his hat, his gloves, his behavior. There's blood at Rockingham. His gloves behind. So it's one of the most and I know too much about it. Like, you could talk to me for weeks about this. That trial was 10 months long. So I know too much.
The next question I want to ask is, now that OJ is on the way to the airport, Park is driving him, tell me what does Ehrlich do with the Bronco? What are his next steps based on, you knowing Ehrlich, you talking to him? What does he do at this point? Now they're gone on their way to the airport.
Yeah. So the real basics of it, or if we were to say the exact way in which he does this, he's got the Bronco on Bristol Street. Okay. He's holding it. He doesn't know when OJ's going to be gone, right? He doesn't talk too much. I don't want to comment too much about the tape. You'd have to hear it yourself and the way he tells the story. Okay. He's holding the Bronco. He knows OJ's going to leave pretty quick. He doesn't have a lot of time. The cops could show up. They could make the quick connection to go to Rockingham. What if OJ got kidnapped, or who knows? He pulls up, comes down Parkins, and comes up Rockingham when OJ's gone. He parks the Bronco right at the number 360, slightly askew, where the ass is kind of hanging out a little bit, okay? They talk about this. Oh, OJ, were you in a rush? Oh, that's where I always park it. OJ didn't park it. Charlie did, okay? So he parks it. His car's there. Supposedly, possibly saw Kato Kalin. I'm not going to say too much about this. Something bad happened. What's going on? He's got all the clothes and the knives like this, and he takes it with him in his car and leaves.
And obviously he discards all that stuff.
He burns it.
But he doesn't do a good job.
Now, here's the other theory. Let me just throw this out. I said this in my book. I wrote the book years before I knew a lot of this stuff too with Ehrlich. I got closer to him over time. What if when Ehrlich has the clothes and the glove is in there, that one glove that you're talking about, what if it is there and he drops it in the road? When he gets out of the Bronco, what if it drops right there? What if Fuhrman finds it there?
Well, if Fuhrman finds it there,
and throws it behind the house when he hears about this.
But why not just leave it right there? Because that's still great evidence.
It is. But what if he's sweetening the pot and he wants to put it on the property where Cato said he heard? See, okay, let me say this about Fuhrman. He actually was a good detective. I've read his book. His book's more well written than my book. It's meticulous. It's detailed. A lot of psychos like Bundy and these guys, they like can write beautiful handwriting, and a lot of criminals and a lot of sneaky people, they're very smart, right? Okay. Fuhrman was a very good detective. He was a genocidal racist. He planted evidence. He hated black people. He hated people of color, hated Latinos. That's absolute fact, 100%. Okay. What I'm saying is he's thinking on his feet. He's at the crime scene. He knows it's Nicole. He said he didn't know who it was. He's a fucking liar. He knew where he was. He knew that was Nicole. He knew that was OJ's ex-wife. He tried to pretend he didn't find out till the morning. No. They can run the address right away. No Bundy, Nicole Brown Simpson. Okay? He's thinking on his feet. He's there. Van Adder and Lang, they're not there for 2 hours. No, they don't show up till like 4:20, 4:15. He's there at like 2 a.m. He's got 2 hours. That's a long time. He's got control of the crime scene. He hates OJ, hates black people, right? He can sweeten the pot right here. He sees evidence, shoe prints, a hat, a glove. What if there's 2 gloves there? Pick one of those up. He goes over to Rockingham. Plenty of time. Knows where they live. He responded to them years back. That first call when he hit the car with the bat. Fuhrman was there. Okay? So he knows where OJ lives. He's got plenty of time. Here's a famous black man. And guess who's going to be the center of the trial if he finds some major piece of evidence? Him. So all the what I'm trying to say is he was smart enough to think quickly of how to frame OJ.
Well, it didn't work, obviously.
Right.
And he was probably the main reason why it didn't work. Okay, so give me the timeline of when he lands in Chicago and when he does the turnaround to come right back when he apparently hears the bad news for the first time.
Yeah.
That his ex-wife, was he actually officially divorced from Nicole?
Yes,
okay.
absolutely.
So his ex-wife, he finds the news that finds out about the news his ex-wife was murdered. So give me that timeline.
So he leaves 11:45 flight. He's in Chicago. Now he's there overnight. He smashes the glass in the sink. They find no blood in the sink when he does this. He has a towel that has blood because he's like his hand, but there's nothing on the glass. In the morning early, they notify him like 6 a.m. West Coast time, somewhere in there, that his wife has been killed. He doesn't ask how. He's like, what? He's like, something's happened. Your wife is dead. He doesn't ask how she was murdered. That, I believe, is Ron Phillips who makes that call. He gets on the first flight and he flies back to LA. That's that famous video when he comes back. He's got the white shirt on with the black pants. I think they're black or blue. And they cuff him behind the house.
And then they uncuff him right away.
Because Weitzman's there and like, what are you doing? The big tall black cop was there. They cuff him, then they uncuff him. That's right when he lands. He comes straight from the airport. That's when Robert Kardashian takes his bag.
Yes. And we never found out what was in
LAPD don't even take his luggage when he shows back up.
So were those Louis bags, Louis Vuitton bags?
Yeah, the Louis bag, yeah.
The ones that Kardashian took.
Yeah, it's a garment bag. You fold your clothes over it.
So
there's nothing in it. They made a whole documentary about this. Burt Kearns, whatever his name is, did this whole big special about Kardashian in the bag. And Kim Kardashian looked at it too, and she went home and there's nothing in there. There's no knife. There's no bloody clothes. It's not that stupid. It's not going to bring back. He doesn't even have any bloody clothes. I think he got rid of his boxers at the airport. I think he threw it in the garbage can.
But why was it important for Robert Kardashian to take those bags away?
That's a good question. Why is he taking his bags away? Because he's helping OJ.
Yeah, well, he was helping OJ, but if you saw the expression on his face when he was found not guilty.
Yeah, that's an act.
All right, so he's back.
Why would you take his bag? Think about that. This guy's a murder suspect. Why are you even touching his evidence? And this guy, Robert Kardashian, was sprinkled with fairy dust too. How does he get to drive away with this bag? And then why does Robert Kardashian become a lawyer again? Because he was a suspect in the conspiracy to kill her through Bill Waz's story. So he says, I'm going to be a lawyer again. And now you can't interview him. You can't interrogate him. All this stuff with OJ's confidential now with all this, everything he's going to talk to him about.
Yeah, he activated his license so he could have that attorney-client protection.
And so he could sit in the courtroom, and it'd look weird if they start to find out this Bill Waz story that starts to explode. After the murders, Bill Waz starts to connect the dots like, Kardashian asked me to put a bullet in her head in January of 94. What's going on? Like, and that whole thing is a whole mess. I have an article. I know someone that has an article all about this that's like many pages long, that's never been published. And I give people my email, investigatorla19@gmail.com, investigatorla19@gmail, if people ever want to talk more about just in general, all the stuff.
Okay, so then eventually they decide to arrest him. And did he really author a suicide letter?
Yes. I can tell you a really crazy story about that too.
Yeah, because it was read. Wasn't it read?
Robert Kardashian read it.
Like it was a press conference.
Yeah. And he actually wrote that letter days before. They said it was dated when he was reading it. It wasn't. It was written before. OJ had a gun with him at Kardashian's house. He kept threatening to blow his head off in Kim's room by the pool. There's a tape. I read the transcript. I can't say how I read it. I read it. OJ, they found it years later in the drawer at Kardashian's house. OJ was going to blow his head off. And he admits there's someone else involved in the murder on tape. He says it. I don't want to mess with their life. There's someone else that was involved in the murders. I don't want to mess with them right now. He's talking about Ippolito and Ehrlich. He doesn't say their name. He doesn't say he did it, right? Because he's being taped. There was Larry Schiller, that reporter. I don't know if you know who he is. He made all the tapes of Kardashian and OJ. He still holds them to this day. And OJ wrote that letter before he went to Nicole's grave. He wrote it 2 days before that Bronco chase happened. I think that was a Friday. And Kardashian read it, and that's why he says, think of the good OJ, right? Not this lost person. He thanks Don Sofer, who's mob in Turnberry Isle. He created Turnberry Isle in Florida, Aventura. Donnie calls him. Thank you, Donnie. He thanks Mark Packer, another shady character from the thing. He thanks Alan Austin, some of his football buddies. He thanks AC. Oh, I don't know where I'd be without you, my man. That is a suicide letter. OJ will say it wasn't. He was holding a gun to his head in the Bronco. And OJ told Paula Barbieri this. If you read her book, she says it in the book. She says OJ said he had a towel wrapped around the gun. He actually pulled the trigger. The towel stopped the trigger, the hammer.
Yeah, we know that the gun was in the car with AC Collins because wasn't there a phone? Wasn't AC on the phone?
Yes. And OJ jumps on the phone too.
And AC's even saying he's got a gun to his head.
Yep.
Which is crazy. Do you think that was all an act for sympathy, or do you think OJ was really going to go through with it?
I think he was going to kill himself. He had AC take him down to Orange County to the grave where Nicole's buried. They went there. There was a witness that said he was screaming at the grave. Why'd you do this to me? Like it's her fault, right? Why'd you do this? Like he's blaming the drug extortion on her, right? And they drive back, and I do believe, yeah, he was trying to kill himself. He's fighting it, right? He's like, he wants to do it, you know? And AC's yelling at him, don't do it, OJ, don't do it. Like, so he wrote a letter saying goodbye to everyone. Come on. I mean, it's kind of textbook.
Now, once OJ started his trial, there were all these little accusations about drugs being involved, but it never really truly got exploited in the trial, except for when Johnny Cochran said that the slice on the neck looked like a Colombian way of killing someone, which was a reference to drug connections.
That's when they brought in the Brett Cantor story saying he got a Colombian necktie. That stuff, there's really no connection. The Cantor case, people think it was either Russian mafia killed him for not letting them deal the drugs in the Dragonfly, or it was a Latino gang that was dealing drugs and was mad that he was not letting them deal the drugs. That wasn't tied to OJ. They brought up the drug hit. They said Colombian drug lords did it. They asked Faye Resnick this. Geraldo asked her. So did Larry King. They asked her on live TV. Her face looks like, no, it's not drug related. Faye knew it was. They knew about Ippolito. They knew there was something shady about the murders, and it was drug related. It's always hard to say the drug thing because OJ Simpson and drugs, you don't equate them. And it wasn't a drug hit like two drug dealers went over there and killed Ron Goldman and Nicole. OJ's there. So it's just something, I say it's spun out of control. It went south fast, okay? The investigators did investigate. I know some of these guys personally. They did know there was drugs at Mezzaluna. They did know who Michael Nigg was. They knew who Ron Goldman was. They knew who Brett Cantor was. They said Goldman knew Cantor, okay? But I know Goldman probably did use drugs because I can kind of prove it if I...
And briefly tell us about Michael Nigg, because he was another guy that was killed. Was it before the trial or after the trial?
Right before the acquittal.
Right before the acquittal.
September of 95. He's with his girlfriend. Some guys come up in a ski mask at a parking lot at El Coyote. I've been there. I walked these crime scenes. It was in a parking lot. He came from an ATM. He took out $40. He was with his girlfriend. She didn't want to talk to me. She's still a mess, I guess. It scared her. She saw him get murdered. He was shot in the head. She died in his arm. He died in her arms.
Did they take the $40?
I don't think they even robbed him. Supposedly he got out of the car, came around. She was in the passenger side. I met one of his very good friends. He talked to me, which was gracious enough to talk to me for an hour. He said Michael Nigg did not deal cocaine. He never saw him deal cocaine. He went around the car. He was going to let his girlfriend out. The guys came onto him right away. It was like a robbery, and they shot him in the head.
And what is Michael Nigg's connection to this?
Michael Nigg dated Kim Goldman. Here we go. Somehow in Santa Barbara, they knew each other, but he didn't know Ron Goldman at the time. Later on, Michael Nigg knew Ron Goldman and helped him get the job at Mezzaluna. Michael Nigg left Mezzaluna and worked for Brett Michaels' restaurant. He had some restaurant, something there. That was supposedly a big drug hangout too. This is all the conspiracy stuff about Michael Nigg, Brett Cantor. They try to tie them together. Are they connected in some loose drug way? Maybe, right? Are we saying Joey Ippolito and Charlie Ehrlich killed them? No, there's no evidence of that. So, I've had some weird things with Michael Nigg, his family. I've met some of them. I tried to sniff stuff out. I think Michael Nigg never got any justice, nor did Brett Cantor. Both cases were never investigated fully, and both cases are unsolved to this day.
And they're both LAPD cases.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So this case happened, 30?
It'll be 30 years this summer.
30 years this summer.
Yep.
And it doesn't appear that the LAPD is actively investigating this at all. But we thought that about Tupac, and then we just find out that Las Vegas police raided Keefe D's house, and that was a 96 case. So what is your hope? I know you always say justice for Nicole Brown, justice for Ronald Goldman. Is that what you ultimately would like to see?
My new kick, I know Fred Goldman, I know Kim, I met Tanya, I talked to Denise, I've talked to all the players, I've met most of the family members. They're polluted by fame, okay? Even though I've rubbed them the wrong way and they've rubbed me the wrong way, I do want them to have justice. I do believe they have the right to know and a need to know the truth about their daughter, sister, brother, and son's murders. Absolutely. The fault of that is the media. They are to be blamed.
And the LAPD.
Sure.
Because their narrative is a singular defendant, a singular assailant.
But to me, I feel like, okay, the LAPD are in a harder spot than the media is. The LAPD have a double jeopardy. Nobody wants to reopen OJ. You're going to spend $10 million to reopen the scabs and replay the Mark Fuhrman tapes? And no one wants to tell the OJ trial again. No one. They are not going to redo that thing, right? Charlie's never going to get arrested. That's my true thought. The media, for NBC, AP Press, and the LA Times to block me from talking to the public is gross. It is disgusting. Like, seriously, think about that. If I came to you for years, there's a tape, I have evidence, he's confessed, I have all the evidence, I can prove it to you. He said he did it, he pitched the project, and you don't even investigate it? Look, I could see if they did one story and then they walk away. They've done nothing. They had to have this one courageous journalist in Miami do a regional story, because Charlie was from Miami and so was Ippolito and all the coke, and that guy has to do it. You're the LA Times, you don't even look at it. Laugh at us on the phone. It's like it's a joke.
Well, has the LAPD ever sat down and questioned Charlie Ehrlich, though?
Nope.
So here's my thing. If they're seeing that the LAPD's never investigated this guy, why should the AP do it? Why should the LA Times do it? They're thinking that if the LAPD doesn't do it, then he must not be a prime suspect.
Right, and that's the problem. Why are you believing what the LAPD is saying when they bumbled the case from day one? And also what I'm saying, I believe in Gary Webb. I believe in Mark Felt, Deep Throat, okay?
Dark Alliance,
Gary Webb, real journalism. Did Gary Webb sit back and go, well, I guess I won't go after Meneses and Danilo Blandone because the cops didn't go after him? Like, that's not what journalism is. I'm not saying they have to label Charlie Ehrlich as a murderer. What I'm saying is do your job. Look up a great story. Sniff around. They've asked me nothing. They've looked at nothing. We don't have a pen. One time the LA Times said they didn't have a pen when I called their news desk. They don't even have a news desk. Like, they're a fraud. And so it's like, this is an LA story that's national repercussions, worldwide. It had race angles. Now you're finding out there was a white guy that was with OJ? You don't think the public has a right to know or a need to know that?
Well, let me ask you this. During the trial, they tried to show that OJ had a bad back, and they had footage of him picking up his son, and you could tell he was really straining.
He had arthritis in the knees, too.
And then the prosecution has a theory that OJ just, killed these two people by himself with this ailing back injury. So it almost, to an outsider, seems like either OJ didn't do it or OJ did it with someone else.
Right.
Because it is difficult. How old was Ron Goldman at the time?
25.
25, young, strong guy, athletic.
2 feet from the door. The door's open. I'm not saying, look, he protected Nicole. He could have run away, but not if two guys are on him and he's stuck in this fence killing cage.
It would have been a fight if it was just OJ and Ron.
Yeah.
Right? but it seemed like, man, them crime scene photos are brutal. They're brutal.
That is a near decapitation. That is a river of blood. That if you look at Ron Goldman's autopsy, you can't see it. His shirt's actually up like this. The way he's laying down, this side of his neck, again, fairy dust.
Explain what you mean for those that are listening.
His neck is wide open. There's a hole in his neck like this.
And the shirt is where?
It's like up like this, so you can't see it.
Up by his cheek area.
Yeah, like the way he's like hunched. His shirt's like lifted up.
So the neck is not exposed
You can't see it
in the
No,
photos.
Right, but if you were to pull this shirt down, you would see this hole in his neck like this. Huge. No one's ever seen that. They have to find it in these crime scene autopsy photos where you see it. And you're just like, wow. Like you don't even realize Nicole's face down. You don't see her slit either.
It seems like it had to be multiple people, not one person
I'm
alone.
not saying I had a guy. Look, I've had so many different people give me their theories. I try to respect people's theories. One guy postulated to me, one guy could absolutely do it. And I said, you know what? You're probably right. If it's OJ, his hands were huge. He was strong, 6'1". He's pissed off. If he's got a big knife, if he just strikes Ron real in the right spot, one shot, he could die. It's possible.
But OJ's, well, how old is he? 40 what?
He's 46.
46 with a body that's been through a lot from his football career.
I'm 49. If I was super pissed off and I had a knife, could I kill 2 people? Yes.
I don't know if I
like
could do
that
it.
awkward silence.
I don't think I can do it.
And look, that's my look. I have my past is a little different, maybe than yours.
I know what back pain feels like too. And I did see him struggle picking up his kid with the back pain.
But here's what I'm saying. Okay, look, I know OJ hunched over. I get it. I didn't play in the NFL. I didn't run the 4x100 and set a world record and train with the biggest, fastest guy. I get it. I'm sure he's in pain. I have back issues sometimes. I have a hip and knee sometimes. If you're pissed off and you're fighting for your life, that shit goes out the window, okay? I'm not saying the next day he's not like, oh, my back. Yeah. I'm just saying in that moment, he only needs to be active for like 4 to 5 minutes, okay? Your adrenaline's going. Your sciatica's out the window for a sec. So I know what you're saying, and my most fascinating thing here as we kind of wrap it up, I'm trying to say is I was the audience too. When I read the screenplay in person in front of Eric, in my head, the word unbelievable kept coming in front of my face. I could see the word as I read it, okay? I didn't really think it was humanly possible that OJ had an accomplice. It took years for me to believe. But I'll tell you this, as you go and you read chapter 6 and you watch the Judith Regan interview and you look at the evidence, you start to see it and you go, oh my God, he did have help.
Do you think that Marsha Clark and Christopher Darden think that your theory is more plausible years later now, looking back at it?
Chris Darden wrote me a text once and told me, don't act like you're my friend, okay? And he put a swear in there. He's a jerk, and I'm not afraid to say it. If he ever wants to debate me, he can debate me. He puts his cell phone on the internet, and I texted him. He was a complete asshole. And I beat him. I beat the Dream Team. I beat Marsha Clark. I beat Darden. I beat Hodgman. I beat Brian Kelberg, who hung up on me on the phone, who these called the genius. And why don't they want to face it? Why are you protecting the story? Especially if you're the prosecution. You don't want to know there was a second.
Well, Christopher Darden is now a criminal defense attorney, so he would seem like he'd be willing to have a conversation.
He was extremely rude, and they had him in the Judith Regan interview when they did the replay. They brought Chris Darden on. They brought Jim Clemente on. These guys know nothing about the murders. They've been brainwashed since day one, basically, about OJ did it himself. OJ did it himself. I don't care if you're an investigator, prosecutor, defense attorney, PI, look for the truth.
Okay. My final question is, what % chance do you believe that Charlie Ehrlich is just making all this up and he had nothing to do with it? Is there a little door there that doubts him, or where do you lay, if he was a betting man, how much % would you say?
Well, you ask me. Well, ask it to me because I have 2 answers.
Okay,
People always ask me this, and even the reporters that have talked to me and with the articles and stuff. And I like anecdotal stories. I'm a storyteller. I am. I've written 4 books. I do videos. People can look me up. I'm a storyteller. I'm an investigator. I'm not a cop, right? I'm not God. I'm not a psychic. Like, I try to think I'm good at what I do. They used to call me at midnight and go, "It's all made up. It's all made up. Ehrlich made it up." I go, "Okay, go ahead. Let it out. Let it out. I can't run the story. He made it up. It makes sense. He met OJ in 02, 01. OJ said, 'Why don't you say you were there? And we'll call you Charlie,' right? And we'll say I had help.
And then let's write a script and
Let's write a movie and a book.
Make millions of dollars, right?
And then Rupert Murdoch fires him in 06 and gets rid of it. And so they're like, shit, we didn't make any money. Oh, God. So then years later, Ehrlich comes forward in 2017 and goes, "I'm OJ's accomplice." And they redo it again, right? So now they're like, and they get this Eric guy, they get a sucker, right, to believe him. So my answer to you is, it ran through my mind. When they would do this to me, I go, oh shit, maybe it is made up. Like, maybe it is. Like, I wasn't there. There's no video of it. But then over time, and I learned this from another mentor of mine, he's a private investigator, and I've learned a lot from him. He goes, double down. If you believe it, you go all the way. There's 0% in my head today that OJ did it by himself.
That's incredible. Where can the people tap in with you if they want to ask you questions, if they want to have a conversation with you? And actually, the reason why I asked that is because you're knowledgeable of the JonBenet Ramsey homicide in Colorado. We had people admitting to it that had nothing to do with it. We had fake confessions.
Absolutely.
So that's why I wonder, what's the chance that Charlie Ehrlich is part of a fake confession? That's
0.
Okay, 0. Hey, there you go. You guys heard it right there from Chris Todd.
But I will say too, like on JonBenet and other people, and John Mark Carr and Gary Oliva, people do that. And what did Glenn Rogers do on OJ? What did Glenn Rogers' brother say? My brother, the serial killer, killed him. And Norman Pardo said that. And Bill Deere said Jason Simpson. When you have a murder case that's a cold case or it's open, a lot of people can come out. You got to be able to kind of navigate the seas.
Well, man, I appreciate you, Chris, for coming down.
Thank you so much, man.
And sharing. What's the title of the book that you wrote?
Ron's Revenge. It's on Amazon. I wrote a book about the Delphi murders also called Forest for the Trees. My book, If I Did It, or If We Did It, is no longer there. It's basically Ron's Revenge. And I wrote a book also called Hollywood is Burning Locusts. And my email, investigatorla19, the number's 19 @gmail.com. I always respond to everybody, and I'm open to, don't bring me the BS. Just if you want to talk to me for real, anytime, anywhere to debate about anything too.
Well, I got the PDF file for If I Did It by OJ on my laptop, but unfortunately I never got the book because how long did that book last on the shelves?
Well, it's now published. It was released years later. They supposedly sold 400,000 copies.
But of the first printing, that's 400,000 or
the
total?
original total 400,000 copies over years. Remember, they wrote this. This is almost 20 years ago. They almost wrote this.
How many first editions?
15 years ago, 17 years ago.
How many first editions of those books do you think are
There's
around?
only one version of that book.
But of the first release, how many do you think got out there before they took?
Oh, I don't know.
Of these 400,000.
I met the publisher. They're called Beaumont Books. Fred Goldman owns the book.
Is that right?
Yes.
Wow.
Because when OJ wrote it, the judge, they took it. There was a lawsuit right away. The Goldmans own that. So when they did the book, it says, I did it. And they put the word if tiny in the lettering. They had to put it there. They couldn't change it. And it says, I did it.
So that book is available for purchase as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And including yours is too?
Yeah, mine. I called my first book, If We Did It, How OJ Simpson and His Murder Accomplice Walked Free. Now I changed it to Ron's Revenge, that Ron is helping to solve his own murder.
Okay, well, Chris Todd, thanks for coming in. Hey, if anybody wants the PDF file of that, I could email it to you. I don't know if Ron Goldman...
I have everything, and I'll send I give my book away for free, too.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah. I give everything for free because I don't want to hear people talk about that I'm trying to profit off of this. I give the book away. And I'm going to have a surprise for everybody here soon. I'm supposed to get some new documents that I was talking to you about. And when I bring those out, we're gonna get to see more about the accomplice.
Definitely come back and drop that bombshell. But yeah, I have the PDF file for If I Did It. If anybody wants it, just send me an email, alexalonso@streetgangs.com. I'm also on Instagram and Twitter at alexalonso101. Do you have social media other than the email you want to give out?
I do not, because Chris Todd is my pen stage name. So if you just Google Chris Todd murder accomplice, usually all my stuff pops up and you can get in touch with me that way too.
There you go. And I want to thank everybody for tapping in with another fire episode of Streets and Scholars.